Hello, welcome to the January 23, 2024 City Council meeting. I hereby call the meeting to order. Members of the public may attend this City Council meeting in person or may watch and listen remotely by viewing the meeting on Channel 8 WCTV and at the city's website at www.wayzata.org/WCTV. Public comment during the public forum and/or public hearing portions of the meeting may be provided in person at the meeting in advance or by logging into the Zoom call and raising your hand during the public hearing. When your name is called in the meeting, you will be seen and heard in our City Council chambers and the cable channel. You will be asked to unmute, and then you may begin your comment. All public comments must include your full name and address. So second order of business is Pledge of Allegiance. Please remove your covers if you're wearing any and place your hand on your heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Third order of business is a roll call. Please know that all members of City Council are either here or accounted for. The mayor is away for this week, so I'm sitting in for her as Mayor Pro Tem. The next item is to approve the agenda as amended to include item 8D, consider special event permit request for amended Chili Open event by the Greater Area Chamber of Commerce. May I have a motion to approve the agenda as is, or does anyone want to make any changes?
I'll make that motion, Mayor Pro Tem, to approve the agenda as is.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. Fifth item is we're in the public forum now. The next item is the public forum, and just as a reminder, for those members of the public in attendance tonight and are interested in speaking, please state your name, address, indicate if you are representing a group, and limit your comments, please, to 3 minutes. If the item you wish to speak about is something that is on the agenda, for those that are in person, please fill out a form at the table and hand it to staff. For those who are watching on Zoom, please send a note via chat to staff and let them know what agenda item you wish to speak about. We also require that your camera is turned on when you speak. The first item in the public forum is a recognition of retirement of Rich Holm, firefighter. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Plekish. I'll have to get used to saying that, but I promise you I will. And good evening, council members. Good evening, everybody in the room tonight. Before the chief comes up, I just wanted to say real quick that it's bittersweet to say goodbye and happy retirement to firefighter Rich Holm after 37 years of serving the organization and, more importantly, the community. Rich, Barb, the rest of the family, you are the epitome of community servants. I know the chief has more to say, but Rich, I especially want to say thank you from City Hall, for me personally, for serving in so many different ways over the years. I'm truly grateful. You're going to be missed. Just personally, I will miss attending a meeting that you're in where no matter what, I know I'm going to get a really good and challenging question from you or like a really funny and challenging comment. So I'll miss that. You're never afraid to speak up, and we're all better. This organization is better as a result of that. So you'll be missed, and I know I'm just scratching the surface with all you've done for the community and in so many different ways, and I think the chief's going to talk a little bit more about that.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing us to be here. I had a tough time talking Rich into coming to do this. He, like most firefighters, he's not really interested in the spotlight. So I'm just going to do what he wanted me to do and say that City Manager Dahl just said everything that I was going to say and said, thank you, we're done. No, we, Thank you. So just a few things about Rich, and he's been He joined the fire department on July 7th, 1986. During his time, come on up here. So during Rich's time on the fire department, he spent the 37 years as a firefighter. He spent a number of years as a pump operator. I think we call them FMOs or drivers. He filled in for a period of time as a lieutenant when we were short. He spent I don't know how many years being the fire department president. He spent twice that many years being the fire department relief association president. And as City Manager Dahl said, he's made the place a better place. Just for, he wasn't afraid to speak up. He was always there when you needed him. And for that, we have a better fire department. So with that, before I let Rich talk, I just want to present him with a little gift. I haven't opened this up yet, so I hope it doesn't say Jeff Dahl on it.
I'll take it if it does.
Well, one of the things is Barb is always complaining about how late Rich is all the time. So we decided to get him a clock. On the clock it says, Richard Holm, thank you for 37 years of service to the Wayzata Fire Department and the City of Wayzata, January 2024. So.
I never thought this night would come. I really never thought I'd leave, but I'd like to say thank you to my wife and my family.
Can you guys go take care of that?
Perfect. One last run. I can't say enough about the family support. It really had to, you have to be there and you have to have the family behind you. And I can't say enough about my family. The fire department family, past and present, I have to thank every one of them. Everybody, they're here. The police department is here. I thank everybody from the bottom of my heart. And it's been quite a journey, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. And if anybody out there is watching and wants to join this thing is the most awesome organization that you could join. That's all I could say. Thank you.
Just one last thing. I'd like to just say thank you for allowing us to be here. I'd like to say thank you to everybody, even those that left, that for being here. And most of all, I'd like to say thank you to Rich. Just thank you for all the support you've been for me during your time. So thank you.
And before everyone leaves, does any council members want to say anything? I know I do.
I'll just real quick, your service is so important to the city, what you guys do on a daily basis. So thank you for 37 years. Wow, can't even imagine. You'll be missed. So thank you.
Yeah, that's almost 2 entire careers worth of service. I wanted to say something. Of course, you know, you and I served together in the fire department, and it's a testament to your contributions to see how many people showed up tonight, not just firefighters, but family and police officers as well. I'm not exaggerating when I say you have been a real value to the department, And I will also say that you were a real value to me. There were a few people on the fire department that acted as mentors to me over the years. You were definitely one of those, and I really appreciate that. I know you're not leaving the community, you're still going to be around, but at least I hope you are. And I know you've not been on any fire calls recently with that growth, which is more than a day's worth, so. So it looks good. So anyway, thanks, Rich. We're going to miss you in the fire department, but we'll see you around town.
Thank you. Thanks, Alex.
Are they taking pictures at all?
Did you guys want to take any pictures? We could certainly,
Yeah, that's what I thought.
okay, all right.
Okay.
Save
City-
some for us.
It's on my diet. City manager, do we have any remote comments as part of the public forum?
Mayor Pro Tem, we do not.
Okay. So item number 6 is new agenda items. Council, does anyone have any new agenda items to discuss or bring up at the meeting today or in the future? No? Next item is the approval of the consent agenda, which consists of quite a few things here, so bear with me as I read through them. Approval of City Council workshop and regular meeting minutes of January 9th, 2024. Approval of the check register. Approval of municipal licenses. Receipt of police activity report. Receipt of building activity report. Approval of professional services agreement with NeoGov for recruitment and onboard software and implementation services. Adoption of Resolution 08-2024, approving closure and transfer of funds. Authorization to solicit bids for the 2024 mill and overlay project. Authorization to solicit bids for the 2024 seal coat project. Adoption of Resolution 07-2024, denying PUD amendment and Shoreland PUD CUP at 825 Mill Street East. And lastly, receipt of memorandum of understanding with the Wayzata Conservancy for Panaway dock funding. Are there any council members who have any questions or wish to pull any item for separate discussion? Councilmember Iverson?
I do. I don't need it to be pulled, but I'd like to bring it just for a quick discussion. Item number 12, receipt of memorandum for understanding with the Wayzata Conservancy for the Panaway dock funding.
Did you want to say something about that or
I
pull
would
it?
if, yes, I do.
do.
So we as a council decided that we would move ahead and fund, I can never pronounce the type of wood. Ipe, is it?
Kebony.
Kebony wood for the new docks. It comes at a cost of an additional $200,000. We moved forward with the understanding that the Conservancy would fund that. So this letter is that. Lately, they have had stronger fundraising efforts, but if we are unable to raise those $200,000 additional funds, the residents would be liable to pay for that potentially. And anyone who has followed this whole thing with the Panaway and the Boardway and the docks and everything know that my preference is to have the money in the bank before we move forward, so I am not comfortable approving this particular thing, but I think I'm in the minority, so it doesn't need to be pulled for discussion. But again, I wish they had the funding in place instead of potentially putting the residents at risk, but it will move forward without my vote.
All right, those comments have been noted. Any other items that anybody wants to pull? I have one. I would like to pull item J, adoption of Resolution 07-2024, denying PUD amendment and Shoreland PUD CUP at 825 Mill Street for a separate discussion and vote. So with that one change, may I ask for a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
Mayor Pro Tem, I'm sorry, I'm a little bit confused. Are we voting on the consent agenda now or the?
Consent agenda.
Okay, good. Just want to note then, if 7K is to be voted on separately, then the motion would be voting on the consent agenda from 7A to 7J, And another side note for Councilmember Iverson, that 7J is actually just receipt of. So an affirmative vote, you're really not voting for it because it's just you're accepting it.
Well, I think
7K,
we're a
I'm
little
sorry.
confused here. We're,
Yeah, I got the 7J and K mixed around.
okay.
But
We're not pulling that item. Councilmember Iverson wanted to state her feelings.
Exactly.
Without pulling.
Right.
So we're only pulling the one item.
right, which was 7J.
Right. Well, on mine, it shows J.
Yeah, that's what I just said, 7J. Yep.
Okay. So, get back to things. May I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
So moved.
In a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Can we do further discussion, please?
Oh, sure, I thought you were finished.
No,
sorry.
that's okay. This is regarding item J. I actually am not comfortable pulling that item from the thing. I won't be changing my vote, and I think that everything was clearly discussed at the last council meeting, and I don't know if what could be stated at this time that would change my mind to vote differently than how I voted last time.
Okay, I can appreciate that thought, but I wanted to pull it because I was the sole vote in favor of the last version, and I don't want to be, I don't want this to be part of the consent agenda now, making me vote for it, when I intend to vote against it.
Question to staff. So we can just do the vote but not have to have long discussion about it? Is that what you're asking for?
Well, we may or may not have discussion, but I would like a separate vote on it.
Can I ask how that works then, please?
Mayor Pro Tem, council members, so the motion that's on, that's been first and second is to approve the consent agenda with that item pooled. And whenever a council member wants to have further discussion on an item or vote on it separately, that's your right to ask for an item to be pooled. So Councilmember Iverson, you'll have that discussion about that particular item directly following vote on the consent agenda. That's how we would normally do it.
Okay, then I'm comfortable moving forward with that. Thank you.
Okay, so all in favor of approving the consent agenda as amended, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, let's move on here. So do we then add that to the end of the regular agenda, or do we vote on that now?
Mayor Pro Tem, you'd vote on it now.
Okay, so I'd like to go ahead and pull that for a separate vote, which is the adoption of Resolution 07-2024, denying PUD amendment and shoreland PUD CUP at 825 Mill Street East. Is there any discussion about that? Jeff?
Okay. I think all of us up here are trying to do what's best for Wayzata, and Alex asked me to rethink my vote on the 825 Mill Street. I think it's very important for us to be very thorough when we make these decisions. I also wanted to acknowledge how much I thought the change in the street presence for the new design really made it a lot more inviting as residences. So I want to do what's right for Wayzata on this, and that's why I've gone back and really given this some thought. I've heard secondhand that some people felt we made the wrong decision on that, and heard that through Alex there. So two questions came to mind for me. Do we need more residential units than we need commercial units right now in Wayzata? And has Presbyterian Home thought creatively enough and done all they can to market their space to lease it for commercial use? So the first question is, do we need more residential or do we need more commercial? I considered the following developments and their contribution to the unit mix in our small town of 4,500 people, approximately 2,200 residences. Wells Fargo is coming along with 79 really nice rental units. Moments of Wayzata is coming along with 80-ish
around 80 senior living units. Cantissimo apartment is 40 senior living units. Westway condos at 201 West Lake is 36. I believe they're rental units, and 3 to 6 commercial units. TCF Buildings' last proposal was 30 condo units. And then the Rice and Broadway was 4 condo units. So in summary, there are 120 senior living, 79 rentals, 70 condos, for a total of 269 new units in the next couple of years here in Wayzata. The 12 more nice units like the one Presbyterian Homes would certainly get absorbed, but do we really need them? Or what do we need? 79 of these new units are just up the street from 825 Mill Street. People who live there, the 825 Mill Street would be on their walk between their home and down Superior to Lake Street. Wouldn't it be nice if there were some nice coffee shops there or some amenity retail there to bring them down the road to Lake Street instead of having to go to Colonial Square to get those amenities? My second question was, has Presbyterian Homes thought creatively enough and done all they can to market their space and to lease it for commercial use? So what's been keeping this place from being rented? It's big and it's deep, and it also looks like a brick wall, and it's not very inviting right now. There's no glass. It's also constructed out of concrete, so the tenants have to pay quite a bit of out-of-pocket costs to prepare the space for business, tenant finishes. It's pretty expensive build. So I asked the question, has Presbyterian Home thought about 12 retail spaces instead of 12 residential spaces, and using the back part of those retail spaces for the amenities they were wanting to add to their community? Have they considered mixed use? Let's throw out a number, 6 residences and 6 retail. Maybe they could use the same design they have been working on for these residences to brighten up the place and put 6 retail in the middle and flank them with residences. They have been asking something like 24 to 34 square foot plus CAM. Maybe that's too high for that spot because it is limited in retail. Maybe they need to invest in the building and make it look inviting to customers. I agree with Alex that large formats stores and retail will not work there. And the single hair salon that was up there for a while was kind of lonely up there and didn't perform very well up there. But I guess my main point is real estate is sometimes about investing in fringe areas to bring them into the mainstream. And we are talking 1 block here, 1 block off the mainstream. I would imagine that once there was 3 to 4 new businesses up there, then they could fill the other 8 very quickly. Kind of the gas station on every corner brings in more business. What I'm saying is we have lots of residences coming online very soon. I believe we will need this retail, and the owners need to take the risk to make something the city needs happen. I believe the city needs more amenities, more services, more small businesses, more than 12 residential units. I'm glad we're rethinking this, and I think it's a really important decision for our city, but my opinion has not changed on that decision.
Thank you, Councilmember Parkhill. Is anyone else who would like to weigh in on this? Well, I'll just make a couple of comments then. First, I think that's a very compelling argument, and it is in the record. And I hope that I am proven wrong in this vote, that we come a year from now or 2 years from now, I'm hoping that it will be filled with commercial or retail. I really hope that. And that was the original plan. My fear is that it won't, because it's been basically a 10-year experiment that has failed. First few years were a retail establishment that just didn't work. It was kind of force-fit in there, and then since then, it's been vacant. And I have to believe the Presbyterian Homes has been searching desperately to fill it because it's expensive to remain vacant. My fear is that, a year from now, 2 years from now, it'll still be vacant. And again, I hope that I'm proven wrong. But I wanted to pull this so that I could at least vote in line with the same vote I took last time, just the opposite. And that's really the main reason I pulled it. But thank you for that thoughtful, contribution. Like I said, it will be in the record. Very, very insightful comments, and perhaps you're right on this. We'll see. Is there anybody else who would like to make a comment before I bring it to a vote?
I would, please.
All right, Councilman Ryerson.
I would also like to thank Councilmember Parkhill for a well-thought-out and well-said. I went out and talked to quite a few of the tenants that are out there that also believe that retail brings retail, that by having more, it will become an area. And I do hope that we will work successfully with Presbyterian Homes to figure out what that mix is, what that looks like. And perhaps we might be back here having a discussion in 5 years again from now. I hope not, but I think we have to give it a try, because I think from what I heard from the retailers is that we need to do that to also help them be successful. I shop there quite a bit, and one of the perks that we have in that area is the heated sidewalks. And so it really should help drive some business. So thank you again, Councilmember Parker, for a well thought out, and the fact that you did so much calculation as to the new housing coming to Wayzata. So thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Okay, with that, we've had a motion and a second, so I'll read it again. We're voting now to adopt Resolution 07-2024, denying PUD amendment in Shoreland PUD CUP at 825 Mill Street. All in favor, signal by saying aye.
Mayor Pro Tem, I don't believe we actually called for a motion in second. I think you went straight to discussion, so I would just
I
encourage.
thought I had, okay, well,
No problem.
I'll entertain a motion in a second.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, with that, all in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay? Okay, very good. Let's see here. Item number 6 is new agenda items. Did I go through that already? Yeah, I did.
Yes.
So we're in new business now. We want to consider adoption of Resolution 05-2024, appointing Parks and Trails Board Member. Go, City Manager.
Thank you, Madam.
Madam.
Thank you. Knew that was going to happen.
That'll cost you.
Mayor Pro Tem Plekish.
I'm not confused about my title here.
Just pulling up the agenda. This is a quick item. If you remember back early or late last year, the city council made all the appointments for boards and commissions. There are still a couple of vacancies on the Parks and Trails Board, and through that interview process, we were able to engage some of the interested candidates for other commissions that didn't have any room. And it turns out that 2 really qualified candidates were interested in working with the Parks and Trails Board. So at the last meeting, we had 1 resident appointed, and we were able to connect with him, and that other candidate was also confirmed their interest in the Parks and Trails Board. So we have an agenda here, or we have a resolution in your packet here that shows appointment of Blake Cameron to the Parks and Trails Board. And you're not seeing the presentation, but you're not missing that much. It was pretty straightforward and just what exactly I said. So happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Council, any questions of staff? Is there any discussion? Okay, may I have a motion to adopt Resolution 05-2024, appointing Parks and Trails Board Member Blake Cameron to a 3-year term to expire December 31st, 2026.
I'll make that motion.
In a second?
Second.
Not that hard. Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Welcome, Blake. Is Blake in the audience here? I didn't see him. Okay. The next item is 8B, to consider approval of first reading of ordinance 835, amending City Code Chapter 716 related to charitable gambling. City Manager?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Our computer is wanting us to refresh some things, and I think we're able to avoid it. Awesome. Thank you, Director Gilner. So background on this item is that our current ordinance allows for just one location in the community to operate charitable gambling. Right now, that is at the Wayzata Muni, and the Lions operate charitable gambling, in this case, pull tabs. They've been doing this, I don't know, for more than several decades, I think since the 80s or 90s. Sorry? 88, thank you. So for quite some time. I would say over the last 10 years or so, every few years, the American Legion has come to the city and started some conversations about wanting to amend the ordinance to allow charitable gambling at their location. And because they're a nonprofit, not only do they operate a restaurant and kind of community center at the American Legion, but they do have the ability to operate charitable gambling as well. So the request evolved, and ultimately at the last council meeting, there was a workshop held, and staff discussed amending potentially the ordinance to allow 2 locations for charitable gambling, one at the Wayzata Muni and the other at the American Legion. Ultimately, the consensus was at that meeting to explore and draft an amended ordinance that would allow the Legion to operate charitable gambling pull tabs at their location. So that's what's in front of you tonight. That's what is in the packet. This really prohibits any other types of pull tabs anywhere else in the community. It's specific to these locations. And as a result, while they're not legally required to, the American Legion has suggested or part of their business plan is to help contribute funds to the city for public safety and other similar type services that we provide. You know, part of the conversation here is, well, okay, we're going from 1 to 2. In addition to why we even have that limitation in the first place, what is the benefit of, or what's the impacts to the Muni and the Lions? And basically, it's really unknown. But I think just given the nature of Wayzata, the fact that it's a very active town, that adding another location, I think kind of the consensus was that there might be some slight impacts to the Muni and the Lions, but probably not significant enough to just continue that limitation of just one pull tab operator. So that's why, it's part of the reason why council direction was to amend the ordinance. I know that the American representatives from the American Legion are here to answer any questions that the council has. And I think some Alliance members are here also and would like to speak too. So with that, I'll just kind of stop there and ask if the council has any questions for staff. Before you do that, one more thing, Mayor Pro Tem. Ultimately, if this ordinance is passed, they would have a second reading, and that would need to be published. Upon publish that date that it's published in the paper, then it's officially enacted, and then the Legion could go through the licensing and registration process through the city that would allow them to have pull tabs. So just by action tonight, there's still a little bit left in the process to move forward with.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions for city manager or staff?
I have one quickly. Is this an annual license, or would this be in perpetuity? How does the licensing work if something were to change? Is something we could change our minds on in a few years?
My understanding is that the license is annual, and so that there's a reapplication process for the Lions now and then the Legion. The Lions is a little bit different because they actually have an agreement or a lease arrangement with the city, So there's an addition agreement there because it's our property. But just through the state, there is I believe, and the folks here that run the operations know a lot better than I do, there is an annual license with the state.
This would give them, they already have a gambling license.
Correct. This would allow for pull tabs.
Okay.
Yep.
And this would allow them to fulfill that by using pull tabs also.
Exactly. Yep.
Do you ever deny licenses?
Good question, Councilmember Parkhill. I don't believe so, but it, if there's not much, if we don't feel comfortable with the operator, if it's somebody coming in from outside, if it's just not consistent with our code or community's values, we'd look at it more, but I don't know that we've ever denied it. And usually parties that are applying know the drill and know what's expected of them.
So this sounds like a permanent change.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions to staff? No. I've got one, or at least something I'd like to have you bring out is in the packet and what was discussed during the workshop the other week is that one of the options that the city has is to institute a 10% revenue share or fee from the establishment. And that hasn't been mentioned, and I just want to bring it up that it is my understanding that we have that option. We could do that tonight, but if we do that for this organization, we'd have to then do that for any other, which is the one other, and that would be the Wayzata Alliance. Is that correct? I just want to clear that up.
That is correct, Mayor Pro Tem. Yep.
Okay. So with that, I've got one person here who would like to speak on this. So I'm not sure how to say the last name. Greg, is it Greffin or Griffin? Greffin. You've got the podium. If you'd like to come up and address us, please give your name and address, please.
Mayor Pro Tem, I don't know, just in terms of like how we've done it in the past, it might be wise to see if the Legion had any comments first or anything to add. I don't know if they were prepared to speak or anything, maybe not, but just. I guess basically I was told questions. Okay.
Well, since he's already up here, let him speak. I mean,
Sounds
he's
good.
the one person that said he'd like to speak, so I think it's appropriate.
Sounds good.
Good evening. My name is Greg Greffin. I live at 1539 Clare Lane, right next to historic Hillcrest Retirement Center. I'm here as a speaker for the Wayzata Alliance. I've been a Lion for 45 years. What's not commonly known is that the term Lions is an acronym for liberty, intelligence, our nation's security. As many of you know, the Wayzata Lions Club has been licensed to operate pull tabs since May of 1988 at the municipal Wayzata Bar and Grill. Since then, over the past 36 years, we have contributed $1,316,000 to the Wayzata Fire Department Capital Equipment Fund. I think it's notable that one of the firemen was honored tonight. An equal amount to that has gone towards numerous local charities, such as the Hope Chest for breast cancer, the Senior Boardwalk Apartments, and scholarships at Wayzata High. Our goal moving forward is to continue to generate equivalent revenues to be able to contribute still to the Wayzata Fire Department Capital Equipment Fund. If the Wayzata American Legion Post 118 is admitted to offer lawful gambling pull tabs, we ask for your important consideration that the Wayzata American Legion Post 118, their voluntary contribution to be congruent to a similar good faith agreement in line with the same 50% benchmark that the Wayzata Lions have historically contributed. The good Lord created Wayzata to be a town of abundance, not scarcity. There's plenty of revenue to go around for the Wayzata Lions, and if you choose, the American Legion post. All that we're asking is to have the same level, equal playing field in terms of contributions to the city and to the fire department. We are deeply grateful to the city of Wayzata for granting our Wayzata Lions Club over 36 years the exclusive right to sell pull tabs, thus catalyzing our ongoing support to our Wayzata community. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Greffen. And I do see that there are members of the Legion here. Is there anyone there who would like to address the council? Kurt? Probably don't need to remind you. Please name and address.
I'm Kurt Zarbuck, 1310 Holdridge Terrace. I moved here in '84, joined the fire department in '86. I, along with Brian Botham, were the two firemen on the pull tab committee, along with Bill Nelson and Ed Stanky. We met monthly for several years to oversee it. Us at the Wayzata Legion, we own that building. We have a lot of overhead there. We serve the veterans. The Lions, you have done a great job, and we thank you for that. Because I was on the fire department 23 years, I was on that. I got on a month after Rich, but I got off in 2010. And so going back to the Legion, we have a lot of expenses in-house, and we take care of the veterans as best we can, and that's what we're there for. We're here to serve the community. When Bill got hit on the highway, they had the fundraiser up at the Legion, because we have an area for that. So pull tabs is a legal thing to do, and we have the one place in town here, and you're doing a great job. But just outside of Wayzata, there are several places to go and play pull tabs. And I happen to frequent some of these places, and I know a lot of the guys that are at the Muni. They're at these other places outside of our community. So that money is leaving town anyway. We have the ability to keep more of it here in town, and I actually think we're gonna bring in more people. We get a lot of Legion members that call up and they don't come here because we don't have pull tabs. I don't know if there's another American Legion restaurant bar that doesn't have pull tabs. If you can tell me one, please do. So, just like the restaurants in town, they give out more liquor stores, got more restaurants, we got more people coming to town at night. Now it's a destination. 40 years ago when I was here, at the end you had Old Piper, you had the Muni, you had Hart's Cafe downtown. Legion, we had the Country Club. Now you go downtown, there's restaurants everywhere. People come here because, hey, if the Cove's full, I can go to Sixsmith. So having more brings more people in. You said about the gas station. You get one on each corner. Well, that one's busy, I go to the other one. You'll actually keep more people in town. And we will give you what we can. We sure will. But like I say, we do have a lot more overhead than the Lions do. We have a building to maintain. It's not a brand new building. I think it was 39 that was built originally. So we've got a lot of things to take care of to keep that place open. But we gave back to Wayzata, we still give back to Wayzata, and we're gonna give back to Wayzata. So please don't be concerned about us giving back. Thank you.
Thanks, Kirk. Okay, council, any discussion, any questions maybe of the people who are in the audience here? Yeah, I guess I should ask, is anybody online that wants to weigh in on this?
Mayor Pro Tem, there's nobody online, and it's no public hearing, but I don't think anybody else has requested to speak. I do want to just clarification. There is no requirement from the city that the Lions or anybody else has to make a 50% or any type of contribution. That is on that is something they're doing in good faith. So I just want to make that clear. The city does not require any type of contribution for fire. They've been doing that because they've worked with other organizations in the past and are committed to our public safety departments.
Thanks for that clarification. So I would like to bring it back to council. Questions, comments?
Happy to start.
I see a hand raised here. As long as somebody's here to talk about this, come on up. Please stand in front of the podium. I know who you are, but please get to the microphone and give your name and address.
You stop and visit me every election year. At any rate, you just raised a question about the 10% surcharge. If they have a 10% surcharge, the city, that would eat into the 50% or 25% or whatever percent we give. So that would be not on top of what we have. It would reduce what we're already giving. So
All right.
it's
Thanks for that,
you know,
Ken.
it's be a null action. It hurts your fire department. So.
Oh, Councilmember Parkhill, you want to weigh in?
Yeah, thank you for that. I think that, as Mr. Geffen said, that we are a bountiful community, and there are there's a lot of generosity here, and I think it's appropriate to allow the Legion to have the pull tabs. I think the Lions and the Legion, they have their mission giving, what they want to give to and what's appropriate for them to give. I think it's really hard to make things apple and to equate one percentage to another. It's hard to dictate generosity, I think. And I just get the feeling here that both the Legion and the Lions are going to continue to be incredibly generous to Wayzata and the fire department or wherever, the boardwalk, and you guys have to keep your building going. And I just feel like we cannot dictate generosity. It should be based on the mission of the organization. And I don't believe we need to charge that surcharge either.
All right. I didn't think that was actually on the table, but it's in our packet. Other comments or questions?
I'll just go next, if that's a go down on the line. I agree with everything that Councilmember Parkhill said. As a hockey mom, I found out pretty quickly about the whole pull tab community. It is strong, and I believe that we'll continue to be a strong community that supports it in multiple locations. I think there's a little different demographics in both locations. From what I've witnessed, I personally don't do it, but from what I've witnessed, they play anywhere it's at. And so it won't deter from one from another. I think, again, it benefits people that are seeking that. I've heard gatherings of hockey parents that went to the Legions and was surprised that you didn't have it. And so I would get behind it, and also it's not on the table like you said, but the 10%, I don't think we need to do that as well. So I think there's plenty to go around.
Thank you, Councilmember Iverson. Do you have any comments, or?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, and thank you to the people who came up and spoke at the podium. I agree with my colleagues up here, and I support amending the city code to allow another charitable gambling pull tabs at the Legion. I think it makes sense, and I just wanted to express gratitude from up here and as a community member for all the generosity from both the organizations. So, thank you.
Okay. I'm actually a little conflicted. I didn't know which way I was going to vote when I got here, but I'm conflicted for a number of reasons. That doesn't mean I'm voting for or against. I just want to hear me out. I'm conflicted, one, because I am a veteran. I'm the only veteran in the entire dais here, and I value what the Legion and other veteran groups have done. I'm also, I believe, the only Boys Stater maybe in the room, but it's certainly up here. You are one too? Okay. I went to the one in Illinois, which started this whole thing, by the way. Yeah, we call it the premier Boys State down there because it was the first in the nation. And I certainly took note of your contributions, not only at their level and the variety, but I particularly took note because of your contribution to Tee It Up for the Troops, which was the largest contribution you had made on that list. And you may or may not know that I was president and chairman of the board of that organization for 10 years. So I appreciate that retrospectively. Some of my concerns have been touched on a little bit, which is cannibalization of contributions to the fire department. And frankly, that's kind of an unknown. We've been getting these millions of dollars literally from the Lions Club for a long, long time. And I know it is your intention to do something similar if you get the approval today or ultimately. But again, that's not a requirement on our part for either organization. That's just something that you would do out of your own volition. But it's on the record. This is what your intentions are. One thing I wanted to comment on, and maybe I'll even ask for somebody to come up here, but I heard comments made tonight a couple of times, but also was in our packet. There was some reference to the high expenses that you have to have in operating that place. And yet it is my understanding that all of the money that is raised in pull tabs has to go for certain things. So if it is to be used for operations, I would need to know that. I think my understanding is that money cannot be used for operational expenses. That, City Manager, is that correct?
Mayor Pro Tem, I'm not sure about operations. I don't think so, but they would know better. I think capital improvements are probably just fine, but there's a difference there between, paying the cooks and the servers versus keeping the building upright and whatnot.
Okay, City Attorney, can you weigh in on this?
I don't know for sure. It'd be interesting to hear the Legion respond to that, but you're right, Mayor Pro Tem, that the money raised from charitable gambling has to go towards charitable things, and I would note that the Legion is a charity. Yeah.
And Mayor Pro Tem, they get audited every year too, and they have to have all qualified expenses. So, good question.
And so what I would also end with is that it is very clear that these organizations, the Lions Club and the Legion, do good things. They have a history of doing good things, and that goes back a very long time, even longer than I've been around. It's been a long time. So all that said, like I said, I was conflicted, but all in, I believe that this would actually be of value to the community. It would be my hope that it's not just a matter of people going to the Muni or the Legion to play pull tabs. I would hope that's really not the intention, but instead, it would be to create a more vibrant, attractive place for people to come from all other places where they wouldn't normally come here to the Legion. And I do agree, I think it was Councilmember Iverson that made the comment that the clientele at the Legion is slightly different than those at the Muni. I would agree with that. So I'm not sure we're cannibalizing, but we'll never know. It's kind of a hypothetical. So all that said, unless there are any other comments, I'd like to bring this back to the council. May I have a motion to adopt Resolution 05-2020, excuse me, wrong one here. First reading of Ordinance 835, amending City Code, Chapter 716, related to charitable gambling.
So moved, Mayor Pro Tem.
And a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Approved. Thank you. Okay, the next item, 8C, is to consider adoption of Resolution 06-2024, adopting updated Panaway signage design standards. City Manager?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Director Gellner is going to walk us through this item.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. Okay. In March 2021, the council adopted a policy on naming and dedicating city-owned land and facilities. It allows requests to be made to the city council, and it provides clear process for reviewing and approving requests to name or dedicate an item within typically a public park. It provides standards for signage and other visual aspects associated with a type of naming of a place or dedication of a bench or other objects within our park system. It provides opportunities for valuable public and private support of our city projects and spaces. Most of this has been done through the Wayzata Conservancy, but there's also opportunity for other organizations to contribute to public spaces. And no changes are proposed to the policy at this time. I just wanted to include it in your packet this evening as some background about why we need signage standards for Panaway specifically. So the policy says that we need to have specific design standards for Panaway because of its visual prominence in our community. And the design standards were adopted in March 2021 at the same time as the policy. And the focus of those design standards at the time was on phase 1 of Panaway. And so then in May 2023, the council adopted an amendment to those design standards for signage, and that was to include phase 2, the lake walk and the docks. Now, at the time, we were really struggling to find some specific sign opportunities within the dock location. And so at the time, we decided to move forward with only sign proposals that we felt had enough support from the council at the time, and we had enough expertise to figure out at the time. So those included sign size, colors, font, material, all those details are included in the design standards and must be followed. Now, we've come to January 2024, and a few things have happened since May 2023. We've gone farther along with our design of Phase 2 and have identified the opportunity to choose Kebony wood as the option for the docks. In November, the City Council chose and adopted a plan to continue with the Kebony wood at an increased cost of $200,000, and that was associated with the MOU that was on the consent agenda this evening. Recognizing that there was increased costs, that was not a cost identified earlier in the project, the Wayzata Conservancy came forward with the option of creating a fundraising goal around this specifically for the docks. And so to contribute to the donors that would like to potentially contribute to the Kebony wood specifically, or just to the docks in general, the Conservancy has hired HGA Architects to make an amendment to the design standards for your review tonight that has 2 different signs proposed. The first is Depot Dock sign in Depot Park, and the second is the Broadway Dock sign at the Broadway Rail Crossing. In the green box here, you can see we did have a short review process. We went to the Panaway District Committee on January 11th and reviewed this plan. We received generally positive feedback on that plan at that time. We reviewed it with our Panaway partnership team, which includes the Conservancy and the mayor and Councilmember McDonald. And then we also reviewed it with the Wayzata Conservancy Board, who have a good indication of what donors may be interested in terms of signage. And so the first proposed sign, I know this is a little confusing. It looks like it's 2 signs. It's really just one sign showing you both sides. This one sign here is the Depot Dock sign in Depot Park, as proposed. It's stainless steel and Kebony wood. It's 4 feet tall and 19 inches wide. And then again, it's just one sign that has 2 sides. I guess 4 sides technically, but 2 large sides. Now the land side of the sign says on the top, Port of Wayzata. It's in a pretty gray font on stainless steel. It will be much easier to see once it's actually constructed and installed. A little hard to see on the screen here tonight. Also, it says Depot Docks below Port of Wayzata, and then it says below that the donor names and the directions. So in this case, it would say toward the lake walk, pointing you toward the lake walk. Now, the other side of the sign is the lake side of the sign. It says welcome to Wayzata. So as you're stepping off of the docks, you're welcomed to Wayzata, and you're provided with some directions to the Depot Museum and downtown Wayzata. Now, this sign in the Depot Park allows for up to 4 names total to be listed, private names of donors, And the donor must contribute $50,000 at a minimum to have their name present on this sign. And donations that are $50,000 or more need council approval. So I would be back in front of you with any requests for those donor names to be included on this sign. Now, the location is interesting because we aren't ready to construct Depot Park quite yet. We need to get to phase 3 for that, but we do have the design completed. So we're proposing, though, for existing conditions, that we could install a sign in summer of 2024 or even spring if donations are received and approved. And this is the general location of where that sign would be located. You can see it's not the best time of year here at Depot Park, so that picture isn't super flattering, but you can see that the sign fits in well. It doesn't obstruct any pedestrian pathways, but it's also next to a pedestrian pathway, so it's very visible. Now, the sign would actually get flipped a little bit in its orientation in the new design. We would uninstall the sign and then reinstall it with phase 3. And we're working with potential vendors right now. We haven't selected a sign vendor yet, but in current discussions, we see that that is a possibility to uninstall and reinstall. And so the phase 3 placement of this sign is located again along a walkway in a prominent location, but not in the walkway, won't obstruct any pedestrian movement, and won't interfere with any other interpretive signs that we have and would continue to have in Depot Park. So I'll talk about the Broadway sign, and then we can turn it over to any questions. Then we also have our Conservancy representative tonight, Treasurer Dan Cook. We'll just offer any answers to any questions you might have as well about the signs. So the proposed Broadway dock sign is at the Broadway rail crossing. It's again made of stainless steel and Kebony wood. It's the same size, same height and width. And again, this is one sign that you're seeing on this screen, but this is all of the 4 sides of it, with the 2 largest sides having more language on them. So the lake side says, "Welcome to Wayzata." So again, as you're leaving the docks, you're walking up toward downtown Wayzata, and it says, "Welcome to Wayzata, Broadway Docks." It lists then the directions on there. And then the land side, so if you're leaving the Broadway Plaza 9/11 Memorial and walking down over the rail crossing, you'll see the sign says Port of Wayzata, Broadway Docks, the donor names, and the directions, which of course will say just toward the lake walk. And this is the same as the other one, so a minimum of $50,000 donation is needed to have your name included on this sign, and that still requires council approval when over $50,000. And there are up to 4 names possible here. And so there's up to $200,000 worth of donation opportunities on these signs for each one, which is actually more than what the Kebony would actually cost if all donations were received. Now, this location was really a difficult one for us. We had to look at a lot of options. Our first option was to try to place this down on the docks themselves, but there was really no feasible way to do that with our design team. And so we had to look at something on land. We wanted it to be as close to the water as possible without interfering with prominent lake walk signage that we have to acknowledge those donors. We wanted it to be really at the railroad crossing if possible, but not in the BNSF railway right-of-way. And we did not want it to interfere with the construction of railroad crossing improvements that are planned this spring. We also didn't want it to block lake views as much as we could possibly prevent that. We didn't want it to get in the way of vehicles that will utilize that plaza to get behind Cove Restaurant. And we really just wanted to keep it in line with the iron rod fence that exists there today. So we found a little spot where we can do all of that. It's a little hard to see on the image again. It's a 4-foot tall sign, so it's just a little taller than the iron rod fence. And in that yellow box, you can see how it fits in with a lot of other obstructions to the lake view that we already have existing. There will be some hopefully changes to this number of signs in this location, but we are bound by our requirements by BNSF for standard railway crossing and safety signs that we must have. So I can't guarantee that any of these signs can be removed, but we are having that conversation to see what visual clutter can be reduced. But in the meantime, what we know is that the placement of this sign is really in an area where we already have some visual obstructions to work with, and it's in a prominent location where it will still be seen and stay out of the way of other operations. I'm not sure I have another alternative to offer you this evening for a placement of this sign. We were really struggling to find this location. So if you have any questions, we're happy to answer those. But this was just about the only option we were able to locate. And we're recommending approval of these signs tonight. We recognize that these new signs are generally sized in proportion to the donation amount. Now, they are taller than other signs. They're 4 feet tall. That's unusual for our design standards for Panaway. We've kept a lot of signs really low to the ground. This is a little different because we're trying to have what we call wayfinding or directional signage included. And we really liked the idea of offering a bit of a branding opportunity and calling the area Port of Wayzata. Felt really special and charming to the group that was working on this and to the Conservancy. And we wanted to include that. The design with the ebony wood and stainless steel is consistent with other signs in the Panaway area and with the project itself. The proposed locations aren't impeding on pedestrian traffic. And this just adds another Tier 4 donation opportunity. In your design standards, one of the first pages has the donations split up into 5 tiers based on the cost of the donation or the price of the donation. And we don't really have many Tier 4 opportunities. This is another way to provide that. So up to $400,000 in donation opportunities are available here with these 2 signs. And I think what I'd like to just mention as part of the recommended motion is that the way that the resolution is written is that the sign package that you see in your packets tonight would just completely replace what was previously adopted in May. So everything is the same except for these 2 signs for docks. Otherwise, nothing else has been changed since May 2023. So with that, Mayor Pro Tem and Council, just note that Dan Cook is here from the Conservancy if we have any questions for him, and I can answer any questions you have too. Thanks.
Okay, before we bring up Mr. Cook, are there any questions for staff right now? No? I see a familiar face, friendly face. You come up. I'm sure I don't need to remind you, but please, name and address.
Yeah, Dan Cook, 205 Bushway Road here in Wayzata. It's great to see everybody. Thank you very much for all your work on this. I know the staff has put a lot of hours into this, and so have many council members and community members who are part of the Conservancy. I'm currently serving as treasurer of the Conservancy. And I can just say that we made a lot of great progress with fundraising in 2023. Preliminary income is about $1.3 million of donations received. And our conversations with the existing donors and prospective donors is like, this is a very important tool for us to have, these donor recognition plaques. It's an extremely important tool for us to have in trying to get people to make contributions of this size. You know, we felt strongly about keeping this as ebony wood docks and understood that the shortfall would then have to be made up somewhere. And we're prepared to do that. We just ask that we are given these 2 signs as a way to help bring that money in and close that gap.
Right. Are there any questions of Dan? I don't know. I've got just one. I don't know if it's more appropriate for you or staff, but any contributor that does contribute to be on one of these signs, are the names going to be on just the one side or on both sides?
I believe it's one side, but
Yes, it's
Director
just one
Gellner.
side.
Okay, so you can
in
have 2
this-
names on one side, 2 names on the other side, and you've got quadruple the number. Okay.
That's right, yep, and they'll be on the land side.
Are there no names on the lake side?
Right, correct, yep. So we have on the depot dock here, it's the land side, so the Broadway, or the, I guess it'd be the west side and the north side. And then in the Broadway sign here,
Hard to see that.
the donors there in the land side of the Broadway
'Cause
Plaza.
it looks like there's writing on both sides. Mm-hmm. It would appear to be donors on both sides.
Yeah, so I know that font is really small. The
I
lake
got good eyesight,
side.
but that's like a 0.5 font.
Yeah, I know. And the lake side is actually just directions. So
Okay.
it's just to Lake Street Plaza, 9/11 Memorial, downtown Wayzata. So we would just list the donors once, and the land side was preferred by the Conservancy.
Right, any other questions, Mr. Cook? Let me bring it back to council then. What are your thoughts?
I'll just go first all night. I'm on the Conservancy too, so I'm the board. I'm pretty, familiar with all of this, and I just think everybody's done a great job, and this gives them the tools they need to raise the money that we need. So I'm all for it.
Councilman Robertson?
I guess there's yin and yang in every room. I know you guys have really had a really successful 2023, and so kudos to you, and hopefully 2024 is going to be as successful. My concern is, when are these changes going to stop? There's been change after change after change. The volume seems to continue to creep up. I've always spoke up about this. I've always had a strong opinion about it. I have a concern about the size, the scale, the visual clutter, because I don't know if there's another shortage that happens. Are they going to come back again? I wonder, we are a wealthy community. Are there also donors that are willing to donate without having name recognition? I'm just concerned about the clutter and the visibility of sign after sign after sign, and these are quite large. So I'm not comfortable moving forward. I'd love to see you have some other tools in your toolbox to raise money.
All right, Councilmember McDonald?
Thank you. Yes. I like these signs, and I'm always wary about the amount of inventory of these naming opportunities in the park. However, I like that this has a wayfinding aspect to it. It just feels like an appropriate place to point someone in the right direction. I like the style. I like that they're only 4 feet tall. And I do see that that this amount and this sort of recognition is probably a really great tool for you guys. So I support this one.
I too support this. I do have some concern, but not enough to override my feeling about it, because when we were first presented with sign opportunities way back when, in the first iteration, it was a plethora of signs, and it was way too many. And if memory serves me correctly, we had 2 iterations of reducing that number substantially, as I recall. So we're down to a fairly substantially smaller number than we had when we started. We're not adding that many. Now, obviously, these are more prominent, but the opportunity and the reason for that opportunity, I think, is there. So I, too, would support this this evening.
Can I just make
Sure.
part of why I want anyone watching at home? It's compelling, I know. I look at the sign that's on page 127, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I look at the quantity, there are some huge numbers. On the Boardwalk Rail alone, we have 735 messages. So I do agree with you, Alex, we did come down, but again, when I say visual clutter and stuff, there's a reason, because there are some large quantities, and when you dig into this in a very small space, it's large. So for anyone listening, the data is available to kind of look at both sides.
I do think that's a fair point. So with that, I will bring it back may I have a motion to, where are we here? Motion to adopt Resolution 06-2024, adopting updated Panaway signage design standards.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay?
Okay, motion passes. Okay, the last item was added more recently is item 8D, to consider a special event permit request for amended Chili Open event by the Greater Area Chamber of Commerce. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. So as you mentioned, this item was added early this morning as an amended item for the amended agenda. It's ultimately to consider a special event permit request for an amended Chili Open event by the Greater Wayzata Chamber of Commerce. President Pearson is here tonight to answer any questions. I also asked, despite kind of the last minute, Police Chief Schultz and Director Kelly to be here as well to chime in. I'm just going to do a real highlighted kind of update of where we're at, what the request is. It's probably good after that, Mayor Pro Tem, to get any comments from Chief Schultz and Director Kelly, and then have some time for President Pearson to kind of explain in more detail their perspective on it. But overall, as we discussed 2 weeks ago at a council meeting for an amended Chili Open proposal, this is another iteration of that based on the timing and circumstances, mostly of Mother Nature, honestly, and trying to salvage this year's event. So real quick, of course, it's coming up. The event is to be held on February 9th and 10th. That's Friday and Saturday of this year. As I mentioned with last meeting's request, the council approved with several conditions the ability for the chamber to have the event on land instead of on ice if the ice wasn't safe enough to have the event. There was a lot of good discussion, but ultimately the council, as I mentioned, voted to approve that kind of second on ice option. Since then, I know the chamber's been doing some engagement with their membership and the folks that have already signed up to participate in the event. And I think they got some data that for a variety of reasons, I think not having snow and it just being different holes and just different vibe to it, and also how the alcohol component of the event changes, that an on-land event wasn't really feasible. So kind of mid last week, the chamber approached the city on having a second kind of just-in-case option to have on ice, in case that the kind of the original normal option, which is, you know, right outside the marina on the lake near the beach, if that wasn't usable. When I say usable, I mean if the ice, I don't know what you would call it, the consistency of it, the texture of it, the feel of it, it was too rough. If it wasn't appropriate for that type of event, or because there are a number of, two big city projects going on in that area, marina dredging, as well as the Panaway construction. If that construction was a little bit different than what we had anticipated and it was more of an inconvenience, then they would have the ability to still have it on ice if the ice was safe enough over on the other side of Wayzata Bay, which is right next to the Wayzata Sailing Center and the Yacht Club. So they've got some preliminary information of what it would look like, how it would operate. Really, staff has given some kind of preliminary comments. Probably could make it work, but there is some risk involved. And we're really concerned just about the timing, the limited notice that people around the area are gonna have. I'm sure, single-family homeowners right next door don't know about it, and if we approve it tonight, they can say whether they like it or not, but they're not gonna really have much control over if it happens or not. So we're concerned about that process. And really, does those benefits of potentially having it over there really outweigh the fact that, communication, timing, is all kind of not in sync with how we would normally plan for these things. Ultimately, the girl in the room, of course, is the ice and the weather. And hopefully it's not a moot point, but that is the major kind of variable with all this. staff is really trying to be accommodating, but for something like this, another option after extensive conversation 2 weeks ago, we felt strongly that it was too quick to give a recommendation of approval, so we don't recommend that. But I think having a discussion, if you have any questions for us, for Chief Schultz, for Director Kelly, and then I think having President Pearson kind of provide her perspective, I'm sure some kind of good direction can be given. But we're really concerned, I'll just leave it at that, that there's not enough timing. And we feel like there's a viable Plan A option still there. And we think that that should be stuck to. So with that, maybe Mayor Pro Tem, happy to answer any questions just on that summary. The experts in Chief Schultz and Director Kelly, I'm sure are available or can answer any questions that you have as well. Anything to add, gents? Okay.
Council, any questions of city manager or police chief? Go on.
Police chief and probably city manager, or?
Well, why don't we call you all up here and those last questions here?
Can I just make a brief comment as they walk up? Thank you for the document. I think there's a lot more information for us to look at than last time. So thank you for putting that. The pros and cons were really helpful to look at. It just helped me understand some of the issues that you guys are working for. So thank you for doing that, Becky. It's very helpful. So question, one of the cons when we look at the sailing school is the notification to the neighbors. So my question to you is, can we make Lake Street Extension, East Circle Drive, Wise, Central, and LaSalle, no parking? Is that feasible to put signs out so that people aren't parking in that neighborhood?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. It was a comment that came up actually earlier today via email. I would consider that one of the conditions of approval for this particular location.
Okay, because I think that would alleviate, because it's such short notice, that I think would alleviate concerns that the neighbors would have is kind of what's happening in that neighborhood. So thank you, I'm glad you can do that. And then, this is kind of for Becky. I see that one of the cons is finding a place for 60 people for the Wayzata Yacht Club. And have you been able to walk through that or work through that?
Well, I guess we will call you up here.
Get up here, lady.
Join the club. You know, the questions might be flying in all directions. So come on up, Becky. If you would just introduce yourself, name and address again.
Good evening. I'm Becky Pearson. I work at 401 East Lake Street, and I live at 2830 Kimberly Lane in Plymouth. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and council members and staff, for allowing me to be up here to answer some questions. Should I answer the question about the displacement of the 60 people? We have connected with a couple of different options on that, thinking that we have a place that we could go to. But again, looking at this as a last minute, we're just holding on to one in particular, and know that another one is possible.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything else you wanted to say? We have the microphone. If you. Yeah, go ahead and
Thank
just.
you. I didn't know if there were questions that you'd like me
There
to
may be,
answer,
but why don't you just tell us your piece and we'll throw questions
great.
later.
First, a couple of things. Again, thank you for allowing me to be here. I know it does take some thought time, and I appreciate that from all of staff, including city manager. One thing, just going back 2 weeks ago, being here again, just lovely to be in front of you. But the on-land discussion that we had last week, I do think that that is still a very good process that we went through. I think in the future, that might be something that we move toward. And if it's something that we can share how that might play out in messaging when registration first opens, maybe we could have a different scenario. So thank you for that time a couple of weeks ago. I don't think that was for naught. I just want to say, in terms of this new option, it is another option, takes some time. The reason that we even got to this point was when, within the last 2 weeks, we were recognizing that whatever number of days ago it seems like, we were starting to form ice. Down at the Wayzata Sailing Center, they were forming ice at a time when ice was still being disrupted every day with the construction for the lake walk. So at that point, it sort of hit kind of had that light bulb moment, like, well, if it's still, if we're growing ice down there and we're not, and we don't know exactly when the timing is going to finish up with the construction, maybe that's an option. Maybe we will be able to get additional ice down there. That's what originally brought us down to that point for an on-ice option. So then what we did, recognizing that if we were to move into something like that, the process with council is to get approval. This would be the last opportunity to do that. So we went ahead, we were able to work with the sailing center, was at a yacht club, to get their approval and to find out information and go through some of those pros and cons. Specifically to the residents, well, before I go on, we're grateful of the partnership and their willingness to help us with that. So that's been a blessing for us. In terms of some of the questions already asked the residents, we've had indication from the Wayzata Sailing that they have a very strong relationship, communication with the residents around in that area. They seem to have been very supportive. The Sailing Center has a great way of communicating and said that they would help facilitate that for us. So we felt that while we needed to have a communication plan and let them know what would be going on, that we had some strength behind us on how we might do that. And Sailing Center had been great and sent a letter of support. So that was just one thing I wanted to mention about the residents. The other is that there was mention of the liquor license. We have made a couple of additional decisions. Friday night, typically, we will have the last few years, we've had an event, live music event in the tent, the 19th hole tent on Friday night. We've just decided, just based on the event and where we need to keep our focus on what's the most important, and the part that is something that we want to try to accomplish is the golf tournament, that we are not going to have an event on that Friday night. We're going to keep our eye on the prize for the golf tournament, and with that, we would not be asking for any kind of a new location for a liquor license that we would have used if it was down on Friday night to have that event in the regular area. So those were a couple of thoughts that I had during this initial conversation.
All right, thank you. So with all that, bringing it back to council, are there any questions of anybody here that's standing around?
So I do have a question on the liquor license. Do you have a liquor license for Friday and Saturday night, and we're not changing the Friday night one, but we're changing the Saturday one?
No, we have only utilized the liquor license on Friday night when we sell some beer and wine in the tent.
You don't sell beer and wine in the tent on Saturday? It's just
No.
all BYO?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
I'm looking forward to coming on the 10th, but I haven't been there.
This might be kind of a dual question, but maybe this is better for staff at first. What do we require of notification for neighbors for large events like this typically?
Councilmember McDonald, great question. Typically, it's significant time before the event.
But how do we notify them?
Oh, how do we?
How?
We really kind of leave it on the applicant to notify, and a lot of times that's door knocking, sometimes it's calling. The most common is just mailers, and something in the mail. And then we also use our city, avenues, like our newsletters and emails, to get the broader word out. But we leave that up to them and give us confidence that people are going to know about it.
So as of this point, Becky, no, the neighbors haven't been notified yet? Is that what I understood from this?
That is correct, because we don't have approval to even consider the moving down there. Should we get approval tonight and that becomes a backup plan for what we hope will be just the regular location off of the beach, we could give a heads up or something like that. I would probably look to Wayzata Sailing to help give some guidance on an approach for giving them a sense that something has been approved. It is an option. It's not the first choice, so that's what I suspect we would do.
I'm torn with the process of informing the public, because if we say yes to this special event permit and then we reach out to the neighbors and the neighbors are unhappy with having thousands of BYOB golfers in their adjacent properties, there isn't really any avenue for that, for those residents to voice any of their concerns other than after the fact. So that's something that's I'm having a hard time with, just food for thought for us up here. A little disappointing that like a couple phone calls weren't made in the meantime. I know there's a lot on your plate, of course, but moving on from that, as of right now, does the sailing center ice look different or thicker or safer or than what's at the beach right now? Because what I'm struggling with is, if there's not enough ice at Wayzata Beach, is there going to be enough ice at the sailing center? So,
Yeah. Right now, as of today, the ice is actually measuring the same for both locations at 13 inches.
so if those two things stay the same, there's no need for the sailing center.
Correct. If the ice is equally safe in both locations and there is access to get out to a course out off of the beach, there's no need to change.
And you need like 10 more inches, 7 more inches of ice? Or
No, we have had an event with no vehicles allowed on the ice in that 10 to 13 inch in the past. So that's a number that we have been working with, and we would continue to plan to not have vehicles out on the ice. And we've had conversation with Hennepin County Water Patrol just to get some additional input on potential use of ATVs, those kind of things, and on a limited capacity to be able to support some activities for or equipment and things that needs to get out, sponsor information, that kind of thing.
And then reasons that would hinder use at the beach. Examples are like the dredging equipment and like as of now, do you think that would be in the way? Because all of those circumstances were known.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's where I'm like, can you give me an example or something of what the concerns are?
That's a great question. I think certainly initially we were just always wanting to do everything we could to be working in advance, even though it doesn't seem like it's in advance, but try to give as much lead time as we possibly can. So knowing that there are Mother Nature things that are happening, some man-made things that are happening, we just wanted to have an option for considering. What I will tell you, what's something that has come up in the last 24 hours, there's been some wind that has come across the lake, starting to impact the ice on the beach area. And so there's a larger pressure ridge that is formed at the beach level. And at this point, or at the beach area, at this point this afternoon, starting about midday, there was some standing water, probably about 4 inches of water that is sitting on top of the strong, big, good level of ice that we've got that has just come up, and that's pretty much taking the area that's available to access the ice between the barge that's not moving and the edge. So that's something that is noticeable today, would be a challenge to get people across that to get to the ice. On the flip side, the Wayzata sailing doesn't have any of that kind of impact going on and is similar. So I don't know if Mike or anything has any comment. So that's something that was just one of those things that yesterday we didn't think that there was anything, and then today suddenly maybe there is.
So more of those hindering factors are Mother Nature.
Yeah, I would say at this point, yes. Mhm.
What the city's already working on. Okay.
Correct.
That's
correct.
Thank you for that clarification.
Yeah.
Okay.
Unfortunate as it is.
Yeah. Thank you. Yep, that's it.
Any other questions? constantly? Yeah.
So, okay, so we're at 13 inches now. We've got some 48-degree weather coming up in the
Yeah.
next 2 weeks. And you are going to call one way or the other tomorrow, I guess. You're going to maybe cancel tomorrow, or it's going to go on. If, let's say, 2 weeks from now that, you know, this warm weather has a serious impact, I assume you would be willing to cancel and put everybody's safety ahead of the event.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're not going to hold the event unless we've got indication from the appropriate people that we can have that out
Makes
there.
that decision, and what are the parameters, I would say?
I mean, we certainly get measurements, so that will tell us where we are on ice depth. And then we work very closely with Hennepin County Water Patrol. They also will come out. I don't know that they have been out measuring yet this year, so they haven't necessarily played a role, but I know we reached out to them today and asked them if they could send out some of their staff to take a look at what's happening in these areas, just to keep an eye on it along with us.
Okay, good. So you've got some officials. That's kind of what I was asking.
Yep.
What about snow? Do you need snow to pull this off, to create the holes, or how does all that work?
We have created holes in the past without snow. It's not our preferred method, but we have figured out a way to do it to create some backstops so the golf balls don't go rolling over to Excelsior. So it's possible, but it's not ideal. But people chase them. Right. Yeah, I know. So so that we have ways
Okay. All right.
to do that. Thanks.
Well, most of the questions I had have been asked and answered, but it all kind of boils down to the weather. And that was the reason you came before us in the first place. And the outlook is not that bright. There are many days above, even in the 40s, it was mentioned before. At this point, with many of the questions already answered, I have to say that honestly, my major concern is not having notified the neighbors of this. Now, my guess would be you don't get to that point if we approve this because of the weather and other considerations. I would think that it's either going to be on ice or off ice. And if it's going to be on ice, my sense is that the original location is probably the one that you would make work. But because of the fact that there might be some strong opposition to this by the neighbors, and we did not give them the appropriate notice, that to me is reason enough not to do this. We're already jumping through hoops to do this or that, and now this or that or that. I think we're just trying to push a rope here. So anyway, that's my thought. Any other questions before we bring it back to a vote? With that then, and you all can go back to your seats. So may I have a motion to either deny or approve, depends on the motion giver, to deny or approve the amended special event permit for the 2024 Chili Open, or to approve and authorize staff to work with the chamber on conditions and amend temporary liquor license. Is that two different motions? Or is it?
Mayor Pro Tem, it is two different motions depending on whether you want to approve or deny. And I would just kind of clarify, this is not approving or denying the original location. This is only that secondary option.
Right,
Whether
yeah.
you want to consider that or not. And I would say if you want to authorize staff to work with, approve and authorize staff, if there's any specific conditions you want to add, you should do that in the motion.
Could I ask,
Yep.
Mayor Pro Tem, could I ask one clarifying question?
Go ahead, please. A little confusing here.
With this being option, does this nullify the original second option? Because, I mean, I didn't realize it was going to be so warm. Does this option make on land not an option anymore?
No, not. I would say, Councilmember McDonald, Mayor Pro Tem Plekish, that as long as it's not, you don't say so in the motion, that we'd still keep that as an option. And I'm here seeing kind of nod, so I think we'd still work with them on that too.
So regardless of how this falls, they still have the beach on ice and then the beach off ice? Right. Okay.
And that is my understanding too. So let me reread this in the first half of it to see where it goes. So may I have a motion to either deny or approve, it will depend on the motion giver, the amended special event permit for the 2024 Chili Open?
I'd like to make that motion to approve. And I believe that the liquor license is off the table. Is that what my
Well,
understanding?
my understanding is if we approve this, then we go to the second half of this
Okay,
motion.
fine.
And if we disapprove, then it's a moot point.
Okay.
So, waiting for a second.
I'll second.
Is there any other further discussion? Councilmember Iverson, did you
So
have?
what's in front of us is approval for the Wayzata Sailing School location, correct?
My understanding is that what this does is gives them another option, make it an option C, if you would, and they'll make that decision at the time that they can.
And Mayor Pro Tem, I think it's important that approval, if there's any conditions specific conditions that you want to add, that there's a friendly amendment to allow that, as well as just because there's so much left to do, that it's an approval, but authorizing staff to work with the chamber on kind of those details.
So with that said, I would like to make a condition, not knowing which way it's going to go, but if it goes with approval, a condition that no parking signs are placed on the streets in the neighborhoods for Shady Oak Lane, Lake Street Extension, East Circle Drive, Wise, Central Avenue, and LaSalle Avenue, all the adjacent neighborhoods, that is a condition of this approval.
In the spirit of that, to authorizing staff to work with Director Kelly, with the chamber, to make sure that this, they see it's suitable and feasible. And then also, the notifying the neighbors is crucial too. I would prefer the chamber does it than, as opposed to just kicking that can over to the sailing school and their, email blast or however they do it, so.
I accept both of those modifications.
Okay, as do I. Did I second?
You seconded.
Okay, as do I do.
Okay, is there any other amendments or discussion before we go to a vote?
One more question, because I live in that neighborhood. When does it get over? So how late would it go to, and how disruptive will it be at the end of the night when people are coming off? So Mike, what are those hours? I'm going to be on an airplane going to Hawaii, so I won't be there. But I'll probably get questions.
Probably no Chili Open going on there.
No.
Mayor Pro Tem and Council, I'll just quickly respond with the event has 3 tee times. There's a 10 a.m., noon, and a 2 p.m. People arrive a little bit before the 9 a.m., and the event usually takes about an hour or so for each group, so that 2 p.m. will end somewhere between 3:30 and 4, where people will start to disperse, and then they'll have their takedown and breakdown of the event. So that's a lot less disruptive than the overall event, but it'll be somewhere in that 4 or 5 o'clock by the time everything's done.
Okay, so people would really not be in the neighborhood after 5 or 6?
Unlikely.
Okay, thank you for that. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the table as amended. Any other discussion before I take it to a vote? Okay, and this is a motion to approve the option, correct? So all in favor of approving this option signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay?
I'm going to say nay. Sorry, I didn't put my mic on. I'm going to say nay, and I say that with reservations because of the temperature. I think if it's going to be, I'm just concerned it's going to be warm, and the impact to that neighborhood is just it's too strong.
Okay, so seeing that it's split 2-2, I guess it fails. All right, moving on. So we're at the city manager's report and discussion.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. A couple quick things. One is thanks to Public Works for rallying the troops and really giving it all their efforts to fill Clap Rich and have it be utilized for our traditional and classic skating rink. Unfortunately, with the temperatures, I think those days are numbered. But it's usable now, so go out there, and it's all because of Public Works and their efforts. So thank you, Mike and your team. For those that haven't seen, the Lake Walk is really coming together out on the shore. Check it out if you haven't. You have to really kind of go, towards the fence along the railroad to really get a good look. But I think almost all of the planks are in, with the exception of 5 or 6 or around there. The next step, of course, once those additional planks are in, the cabinet that we talked about tonight will be over the planks, and the railings will be put up. So it's really starting to take shape. That'll happen over the next couple months. And it looks like the docks are going to be starting in March. And, knock on wood, despite all the weather stuff, we are still on track to be open when we are hoped originally to be open, which is mid-spring, definitely before Memorial Day, and we're still on that track. So we'll be sending more updates because there's a lot of moving parts going on right now in the near future, and putting them, on the website and newsletters and whatnot. Let's see here. We talked about the marina dredging in the marina area. That's going to start next week, starting on the 29th. And my staff over there is gonna not be surprised about this note. I can't read my handwriting, so I'll just stop right there.
Lucky us. Anything else, City Manager?
That's it. Thank you.
Is there anybody online that would like to make a comment at the public forum here?
Mayor Pro Tem, thanks for asking. No, there's not.
All right. So with that, I will appeal for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone.